Bell ringing is a really, really good activity, hobby, sport, concert, everything. My name's Dickon Love, and I'm the captain of the Royal Jubilee Bell Ringers, which means I look after the bells and the bell ringers here at St James Garlickhythe. I look after St Magnus the Martyr in the City of London and St Dunstan in the West. And now St Margaret Pattens. Okay. There's only one bell there.
Was that a kind of group?
Well, I have one thing in common with all of those places, in that certainly for the first three of those, I was responsible for putting the bells in the tower in the first place. Okay. So we raised the money, contracted, and then just created these three new rings of bells. And at St Margaret Pattens, okay, the bell was there, but I was responsible for having it rehung so that it was working again.
This feels incredibly ambitious and expensive and, dare I say, time-consuming?
It was. It started with St Magnus.
Yes.
St Magnus used to have a ring of 10 bells. They were taken down for safety during the war because quite a few other churches in the city lost their bells when the tower got hit by the bombs. As it happens, St Magnus didn't get hit by the bombs, but the bells were taken down anyway. Some of them were then found to be cracked. So after the war, money started to be raised to put them back into the bell frame that was already there, in the ringing room that was already there. But because there was a few of the bells were a bit cracked, they needed a bit more money spent on them. So fundraising started, then the rector died, interest was lost, and the bells were languishing around in the bell foundry in storage for decades. So I came along in 2005, quite interested in belfry archaeology and history, and found this bell frame that was just wanting a ring of bells put in there. And one thing led to another. I thought, well, we'll just put some bells back into the old bell frame. And then before I knew it, having gathered some people around me to help with the fundraising, we thought, well, we could be more ambitious than this. So a new ring of bells, brand new bell frame, and not 10 bells that were there before. We went for a brand new ring of 12. That was a learning curve on how to raise, £350,000.
350, okay. That was going to be my next question.
And then a few years later, in the run-up to 2012, I went to St Dunstan in the West, which also used to have a ring of 8 bells, and those bells were lost in the 60s. So we put a ring of bells back into that tower. But it was at the same time as that, I was asked to come and look at St James Garlickhythe, with very much a lot of interest from the congregation and the church authorities to say, well, can you do the same here? And they raised the money for that. So actually, I placed the order.
And then it was somehow incorporated with the Jubilee.
Well, that's right, because it was 2012.
Yeah.
The Diamond Jubilee. These were 2 rings of bells, which were the Jubilee bells for the City of London. The difference is that I got a call from the Bell Foundry, who introduced me to the people organising the royal pageant, the Thames Diamond Jubilee pageant. And they said, we want a ring of bells to go on the River Thames. We hear you're doing something down on Fleet Street. Can we borrow those bells before they go into the tower? And I said, no. I said, no, we want these bells for when Her Majesty arrives on the day. They can't be on the River Thames 2 days earlier and then in. I said, but what you don't know is St James Garlickhythe, we are putting a ring of bells here, and the Queen's coming nowhere near Garlickhythe. Of course. That then started these bells to go onto the River Thames, built in a purpose-built, well, it was an old rubbish barge, but it was a purpose-built tower, and the idea was to ring them in the way that we ring these, not just what we call hung dead, where you hit them with a hammer. No, these are bells that were swinging 360 degrees.
They were swinging when you were up there on the river?
Yes.
But how on earth do you ring a bell in a boat?
They were pulled with the rope, in the same way that we ring them here.
Yeah.
Full circle, as we call it. Admittedly by 8 very, very skilled bell ringers who knew what they were doing.
Yes.
Members of the Ancient Society of College Youths. And here, you just have to be able to, you can feel the rocking in the boat. And it does affect the momentum of the bells as they move around.
Of course, yeah.
But actually bell towers move as well. But they tend to move in a slightly more jerky fashion, which makes them unpredictable. The boat moved more slowly. But when it moved a lot. Big learning curve, never done anything like it.
Have bells ever been rung like that on a boat before?
No.
And not since, I imagine?
No.
It's just unusual to see new fittings and features,
Oh, yeah.
Clearly, because normally they've been there for years and years and years and years.
Yeah. These are the Royal Jubilee bells. Because these are on the River Thames, we got a royal title through the Cabinet Office and Buckingham Palace for these to be allowed to be called Royal Jubilee bells. There haven't been royal bells for, I'm not quite sure when the last lot of bells were allowed the title royal, but these are. So when people talk about the Jubilee bells, actually there are 2 lots of Jubilee bells. These are the Royal Jubilee bells. And each one is named after a senior member of the royal family.
Okay.
So the largest one is over there. That's Elizabeth.
That's the tenor.
That's the tenor.
Oh, I see Charles.
So this is Charles. Charles is number 6 because Elizabeth is the tenor. The number 7 is Philip, and you can see we've got the Royal Arms, which we were allowed to put on there. These are the only one where we've actually got the document to say that. The others that I know of, I mean, St Martin in the Fields quite often called themselves Royal Bells, but there's no evidence that ever happened. They just took on that title because Buckingham Palace was in their parish.
Oh, I see.
And then there's the Queen's Tower in Imperial College, which were given as a gift to Princess Alexandra, I think it was, and Victoria is her name's on the largest bell there. They're sometimes referred to as Royal Bells. Again, we don't know that they were actually given that title.
They were given that as a
That's
formal
colloquial.
thing.
But these ones actually have the documentation to say these are Royal Bells.
Focus a little bit on the, beautiful craftsmanship, but even the rope tying is it feels like a work of art.
Just be very careful where you're standing and mind your head. So
Let me just get a quick shot of the Elizabeth bell.
that are the original bells.
Ah,
They're clock bells, so they're in the room above.
they stayed, okay.
And one of those, the smallest of the two, smaller of the two you just heard,
Yes.
used to be in St Michael Queenhide's church,
Okay.
which was demolished. And there's a third bell, does the hours.
That's because bells don't wear out. That's too dark.
Yes. Of course, this is the room that Jimmy was.
This is where
Jimmy's
Jimmy
coffin
was.
was
Okay.
just here. And this is a big open room
Yeah.
with the floor above.
Oh, of course, this is a new floor.
So this is a new floor we put in. First time I came here, it was actually, I was really looking forward to seeing this mythical mummy
Yeah.
that I'd heard about. And I came here with the local sidesman here. He said, oh, come on, Dickon, you come and meet Jimmy. And when you're faced with a coffin that's closed, he said, well, do you want me to open it? You can see it. I thought, no.
Do I want to?
I don't. I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I was up in this room a lot with this coffin. And I'd never opened it. And the first time I saw Jimmy was actually when we then lowered him down through this trapdoor here, and all the way through. And he's now in his new resting place. But he had the same cheeky grin on his face all the way through. I mean,
It's actually as hard not to give him an emotional response to his predicament as to do it. I'm doing this very respectfully towards Jim.
it's a lot more respectful than that cupboard he used to be in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he's somewhere a lot less noisy, put it like that. We rang a full peal. I mean, you can see up on the peal boards there.
So just remind me what a full peal is.
A full peal is 5,000 or more changes, and a change is a combination, and change ringing is all about one combination, one permutation after the other.
Hello. Hi, Alan. Gosh.
Okay.
What's the collective noun for bell ringers? Celebration. A celebration. That sounds good.
I've got a rugby show if you want.
Thank you.
And if you do 5,040 on 7 bells, that's the number of possible combinations you can have on 7 bells. So 5,040, come on maths people, 7 factorial,
Yes.
7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2
Yes.
equals the length of what's a peal. So if you're going to do all the changes, that's the number you do. Now if you've got 8 bells, then that's over 40,000 changes.
Yes.
So that takes all day, and that very, very rarely gets done. So a peal is now just generally anything over 5,000 changes. So the ones we rang here on the boat as practice, that took 3 hours and 6 minutes.
And that was with 7 bells.
And that's with 8 bells.
That was with 8 bells.
So you have 7 bells, and sometimes you're going to have one
over 5,000
doing the beat. So that's 5,056 changes that was. And then, well, you can see the one next to it is when the bells got brought into the tower here. And then we rang another change of 5,052 of a method called Jubilee surprise major. And that took us 2 hours 56. They're easier to ring in a tower that's not moving around on the Thames, even though there are more changes to do. Let's ring the back 6 up in peal, please.
You're ringing them
We're
up.
going to ring them up to the position where they're all at the top.
Gosh, Dickon, is this a child's medium?
Okay, are we ready? Here's treble. Off we go.
There must be some order. It must be harder to do some order changes than others.
Well, you learn what you're going to do. So all of this is done from memory. You learn the pattern, and then you learn how to repeat the pattern, and then the conductor, and in this case that was me, will at various points shout a call.
So you'll call the changes?
It's called, no, I just call the word Bob.
Ah.
And everyone's three people following their line just swap over with each other. It's a three-way swap. And then they carry on with the pattern. But the pattern generates new rows. So I'm not learning 5,056 different rows. That's too bad. But if you learn 200 or so, or the positioning of 200 odd, then you can just repeat that.
Beautiful.
It's our branding.
Yeah, branding, yeah.
So I'm now going to embarrass Emma. Emma is probably the most accomplished female conductor in the world.
Wow, okay.
So you better get it right. Look to, trouble's going, he's gone. And provided the conductor says the word Bob in the right place, and that gets pre-learned, then you go from beginning to end.
So are we going to see an example of that tonight?
Yes.
At least a partial peel?
Yes, so we'll do several of them. So we'll
Okay.
do typically 120 changes. And you'll hear the bobs in those sometimes. Sometimes you do it without the bob, you just ring the bit that you're learning.
Okay.
And people are learning at different rates. When people learn bells, they start by learning how to handle a bell, and then you learn to ring with everybody else. Having controlled your bell, you then control it with everybody else, just ringing one after the other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So is this a normal amount? There's a lot of people in this town.
No, everyone just wants to get the picture taken.
It's pretty much like this.
Think about how you hold it, left over right. We'll pull off, then the rope will go up, and then you just pull it down, cut through the air as if you're cutting it with a knife. Good.
Too hard.
This bell is called Anne,
All right, okay.
named after the Princess Royal. And when I saw her in March, I told her that we teach all our people on the bell that bears her name.
All right.
And she used to ring herself. Good. You found that quite easy.
I've survived.
But some people struggle with that. Sometimes it's there. It was consistent, and that was important. And then you learn to do all the swaps.
It feels like a naive question, but I'm assuming if you've got 8 bells, you need 8 people to ring all. Like one person can't ring 2 bells and.
Very few people can ring 2 bells.
Okay.
I'm not one of them.
Okay.
Well, I have done,
Yes.
but not particularly safely.
Yeah.
So there are a very small number of people who can, and they're very clever. And I won't name names because their heads are big enough. Playing Hunt on 7 Billy. The whole fun of it all is going through all these different stages of learning. You learn to ring just those rounds. Then you learn to ring the very simple changes. And then they get more complicated. It's a bit like doing a dance. You learn your simple steps of a dance. Then you put different steps together to produce a longer dance. End up doing a whole ballet. If you really, the real experts. And the peel is like the whole ballet, if you like. So there's always something to learn.
I remember in ice skating there were like triple salchos or something. There's a jump that's harder that no one can do, and everyone, and you know you could get injured when you do it. Is there an equivalent in bell ringing?
Yes. Yeah. Well, certainly there could be complex moves.
Yes.
So you really have to concentrate very hard on every movement that you're making. And of course, the other thing is you've got lighter bells. So this is the lightest.
Yes.
But you also have the heaviest bells. This is the heaviest. And here, the heavier bell, you have to put a little bit more effort in just to control the speed. But the reason we can do this, by the way, and why do we ring the bells 360 degrees? It's because you can pause the bell at the top. So whilst this small bell has got a small wheel, you know, that's sort of going at that speed like this. One with the big wheel, you know, that you can see already, that's going quite slowly.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to ring the bell all the way to the top in order to have that pause. Because when you're ringing changes, actually all the bells are ringing at the same speed.
So is the art of it about slowing it down, or are there things that you can do to speed it up?
Yes, so it's you very subtly slow it down, you pause, you hold it at that balance point, or if you need to speed it up a bit to get into an earlier point in the change, you've got to pull in, you've got to check it in, as we call it. And it's learning all of that. And then you've got to do it to within a tenth of a second.
So like that. Hi.
So good change ringing is about rhythm. It's music, as I say. But this is sport as well. Oh, and bell ringing, what else has it got?
Hang on. Okay, so tell me, how is it sport then? What's the competitive element?
Well, we have competitions. Which band can go there and ring the most rhythmically? So you have a set piece. Band A comes in, rings their set piece. It lasts 10 minutes.
And how do you judge?
And you've
one
got
against
some
the
judges
other?
outside.
Okay.
They don't know who's who,
Yeah.
so it's all blind. And they go, right, yes. And they count the faults. So every time there's a bit of a clip. So instead of
Yes.
going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you might go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yes.
6. You know, that's 2 faults. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is faultless. So of course they've got their piece of paper. And they count the faults. And the team with the fewest faults is the winner. So it's a sport. It's music, of course, and it's a very loud musical instrument that everybody in London can hear,
Yeah.
or this part of London anyway. I won't
Yeah.
claim to be any higher than that. You can travel around lots of different bell towers and churches. You get to see all these churches and all these villages around the country. The geography of bell rings is really good.
Yeah, if you could just cut that bit.
When people say to me,
because-
I've just moved to a little village in Cambridgeshire, and they name the village, I say, no, actually, you'll find that's in Norfolk, it's just over the border. We're really nerdy like that. And some people deliberately go around ticking off all the little towers that they can go through in a book. And, you know, some people have rung up 5,000, 6,000 different ones.
Wow.
Then there's what I call belfry archaeology. You can go upstairs. Some of these bells are 300, 400, 500, 600 years old. Okay, these are really new, but then you can go to St Bartholomew the Great down the road. They were cast in 1510, thereabouts. They're old.
Yeah.
And there are some older ones. And you get bell frames
Do
that
they
are old.
sound different when they're that age?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, they don't get worse. It's just that they sound pretty good. They have been tuned.
But I mean, would you be able to listen to a bell and go, that's an old bell?
Yeah.
That was cast in the 15... there's
You
something about the
can't,
metallurgy.
yeah, you can't always tell if it's old just by the sound of it.
Yes.
But you can certainly tell if some bells sound a bit different, that they could be old. And the camaraderie. People come here for a good time, to have fun. You know, they're concentrated. People take their bell ringing seriously, but we have a lot of fun with it. And you'll find us in the pub quite a lot. All landlords. I told you about the geography. You also tend to
Also know
learn
where
all
the
the different
pubs
pubs in all the different villages as well.
I mean, that sounds punishing.
The Whitechapel cast actually cast all the bells that I've cast in London.
And you hear about bells cracking all the time and being arriving cracked and having and problems of that nature. So
Very,
can try
very
not-
rarely these days.
Okay.
You know, I mean, Big Ben did, and that
Yeah.
was Whitechapel. But to be fair, it wasn't their fault. They just put a hammer that was too big in it, and it was also quite a long time ago.
Yes.
But Whitechapel was that old.
Yeah.
that
It
was
goes
happening.
back a
So
long way.
cracked bells were very, very rare.
Okay.
Certainly the modern ones. We did work at St Catherine Cree. We discovered and those bells hadn't been rung for 100 years. And there were some very small hairline cracks in the top of the bells. Well, they'd cast the bell around a piece of iron. And bell metal is made of hard bronze, cast around a piece of iron which just started to
different
swell up at
expansion.
different rates. The expansion cracked the bell. That is quite common.
Can you repair a bell?
You can.
Oh.
You can.
So you have
There's
to-
a company in Cambridgeshire that welds bells, basically brings the whole bell up to a very hot temperature, you know, and then does other processes on them to repair the crack. You can even take bits of bell and kind of weld them back together. When you've got a bell that's in pieces, normally it's probably just better to start from scratch. Time to put the bells to bed. Treble's going. He's gone.
My dear viewer, I want to tell you how friendly, how warm and welcoming everyone at Garlickhythe Bell Tower was to me. But I also need to tell you about the visceral thrill of leaning back against the church walls and feeling them swaying and twist in response to the immense momentum of those brand new bells. And then the sound, more musical in person, drills through your entire body. And the ringers no less concentrated than a cello player, listening, watching, wrestling. And then here, ringing down, the bells go faster, faster and impossibly faster.
In. Three, two, one, miss and catch.
Awesome! That's mad!
Well done, everybody.
It's good, isn't it?